So a while ago, I was actually watching a streamer, and they had linked to a stream of a Chinese player that they were facing that allegedly was cheating. Now, it got me really interested in trying to find any proof that this player was cheating, which led me to some discussions with the developers, with other players, and I kind of got into this rabbit hole of watching streamers play on Douyin, which is essentially Chinese TikTok, where a lot of players of various games stream there, and you can find some streams of the finals. Now, one thing I did find quite interesting after talking to some of the developers was that this game actually isn't released in China. So they're essentially using VPNs in order to play off of Steam, and there will be a Chinese release in the future for this game, but as of right now, it is a little bit hard for this game to grow in the Asian region simply because of the fact that this is not officially released in China. Although I assume this is something that they are working on and hopefully will be released there soon. Now, I will say, after sitting there for maybe a couple hours watching this streamer, I came to the conclusion that I didn't really think that they were cheating, and they just seemed to be very good at the game. But it was very interesting watching this region because the loadouts that they play in a high elo and competitive level are much different than what we use here in NA and in EU. And the reason why I find this so interesting is because they have some pretty interesting tech with the loadouts that they use. And I got very interested in watching heavy gameplay specifically because if you guys are unaware, I actually used a main heavy back in Season 1 and Season 2. And then whenever the bow came out in Season 3, I kind of dropped playing heavy because I wasn't playing as much ranked anymore since it was terminal attack. And I ended up just trying to have fun and learn a new weapon during that season and kind of fell in love with the bow. And then after that, I kind of realized that I'm not really much of a healing type of player, so I didn't really play any medium at that time. I just kind of stuck to light, and then the team that I was on, I just happened to be the light player, so I just stuck with that. And for seasons now, I've just been a light main. But recently, with the healing infuser on light, that is really taking over the meta, I've been getting a little bit bored of it, and I've been going back to my roots of playing heavy. And after watching some of these Douyin streamers playing, I realized that almost all of them are using Charge and Slam with Barricade. And this, to me, was a very interesting combination because this is what I liked to use back in Season 2. The only thing was I thought, are they just stuck in the past? Why would they still be using this? Because it got nerfed a while ago and basically nobody uses it anymore. If you look at the pro scene of NA and EU, basically there are 0 Charge and Slam players. There are some that like to dabble in it, but when it comes to pro play specifically, it is basically completely dead in the meta. And the biggest pick right now is Winchclaw. There are some players who bring out the Mesh Shield from time to time, but Winchclaw seems to be dominating the competitive scene for both NA and EU. Whereas in Asia, it is basically only Charge and Slam, and this got me really interested in trying to figure out why they're using it. Is there any sort of tech that they have that makes it better, or are they just missing out on some potential? And I decided to kind of explore this, and this is what I've been mainly playing when I play World Tour. If I'm solo queue or just chilling, I really enjoy playing heavy right now, and specifically Charge and Slam, because after the nerf, I don't feel like it is as cheesy as it used to be. While I understand a lot of people are still kind of not too happy with the state of Charge and Slam because it does seem like a click for a free kill kind of button. There is actually some pretty interesting tech with it, some timing, and some ways to play around it that I found really interesting. The one thing that I am not the biggest fan of when playing heavy is the mobility. With Barricade and Charge and Slam, I feel like you get that mobility in the class, and it becomes so much more enjoyable for me to play. So I'm going to break down the loadout and the choices that they use within it, along with some variations that I have tried, and then I'm going to explain some of the tech that I discovered while watching some of these top players that were streaming on Douyin. I also want to give a shout out to Sensoil from Ape Squad. He actually plays Charge and Slam as well. He does play it a little bit differently than what I have here and what the Asian players play, but I did ask him for a lot of advice on how he uses Charge and Slam, so some of the tech he actually already knew and shared with me here. So let me break it down. So we obviously have Charge and Slam, the SA1216, which is still the most popular weapon across the board. I will say Shack 50 is becoming a lot more popular in the competitive scene. We have RPG for some extra damage. Now the barricade here is for that extra safety since we don't have mesh shield. The dome shield is pretty much just a universal like S tier pick when it comes to the heavy gadgets. Now in the reserve, I have the Shack 50 because I think this is probably the second best, if not the best weapon on the heavy class right now. And this really does feel map dependent and potentially team comp dependent if you want to play a little bit more range or close range. Another thing is I've been experimenting a lot with the lock bolt, and I feel like I've been having some really good success with lock bolt, with charge and slam. Being able to lock somebody in place and then charge right into them is actually pretty deadly and sometimes more effective than using an RPG. And then we also have C4, which is Sensoyo's preferred way of using this class, basically replacing the barricade for it. And this is for playing drop or comboing with RPG to get some really insane initial damage. If you place a C4 near a doorway, they walk through it, you RPG, then instantly charge and slam into them. You can kind of just delete anybody. So definitely some validity to using the C4 here. I also have Grenade that I've been experimenting with a little bit. I feel like I've seen some people use Pyromine as well, but I like the Grenade for an alternative to the barricade if the barricade just feels like it's a little bit more difficult to place, maybe on some maps like Las Vegas where there's so much tight corridors and weird little doorways that make it a little bit harder to place barricades. The Goo Grenade can be a pretty good alternative in those situations. Now, the reason why I think Charge and Slam is still a pretty solid pick and why I think it could potentially be a decent sleeper pick in the current meta is simply because of how common we see Goo Grenade being used in high elo, whether it be heavies, mediums, or lights. This is a very common pick that people use as a gadget, and Charge and Slam can instantly delete it. Basically just press the button and you are charging through it like it is a piece of paper, and nothing else in the game really destroys Goo Grenades quite as fast. I know a lot of people say like, oh, Pyronade, but then you have to sit there waiting like 10 seconds until it's completely disappeared and all the fire has disappeared to go through, so it's not as effective. But all these people spamming Goo Grenades as they're running away from you, well, you just charge and slam through that. And especially if they are lock bolted, they're not getting anywhere. So for that reason, I think Charge and Slam is actually pretty strong on that alone, but there's also some other tech that I was actually unaware of because I thought it was removed after not using it for so long. And one of those things is about canceling animations. So if you are using something like the SA12 or the KS23, the little animation to pump the shotgun, you can actually cancel with Charge and Slam. So let's take, for example, you take a shot, then you melee, then you Charge and Slam. When you get out of that Charge and Slam, you will not have to go through that animation again. Now, you don't even have to throw the quick melee in. This is just a little bit of a bonus tech in order to get that extra 40 damage out in your combo. Another thing is obviously you do a little bit more damage when it comes to the slam part of Charge and Slam if you are falling from a higher distance. So for the most part, that isn't always the case. So you can set up gateways or jump pads in order to utilize this a little bit better. But one thing is just simply canceling the Charge and Slam. So after you are charging, don't jump to try and get that extra 50 damage that you're going to get from ground level. Just cancel it and start shooting, and you're going to do a lot more damage overall, and you're not going to waste your time jumping and slamming into them just for that measly 50 damage, and your screen's going to be shaking, and they're probably going to be able to chip out an extra like 100 damage on you during that jump. There's a couple other strategies that I've seen, such as just simply moving your teammates around. Once you spawn, you can charge into them just to shove them a little bit, and with the short cooldown of Charge and Slam, you can do this quite frequently. You can also Charge and Slam right after you get winched in order to deal some close range damage to the person that winched you. It's obviously a pretty easy counter to mesh. If they're holding mesh, you can just charge right into it. It's not going to block your damage. So there is a lot of places where this is a pretty solid pick. And I think the fact that it counters goo is one of the most enticing reasons for me to actually start using it. So I want to hear what you guys think. Do you guys think that the Chinese players are just really far behind on the meta? Do you think that this might be a secret tech that actually makes a lot of sense? I'm really curious what you guys think. I've been exploring this loadout for a while, along with a couple different variations, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. I'm not 100% sure if I would say that this is a meta or if that it's going to, become the new meta of the pro scene. I don't really think that's going to happen, but I do think that there is some validity to why they think that this is so good. And who knows, maybe if some of the top players were to explore this a little bit more, we could potentially see this in Pro League soon. Now, if you're not already, consider subscribing. I'd appreciate it if you check out my Twitch as well. become a member on YouTube if you would like to support me further. Now, get out there in the battlefield and press your free kill button, and I will see you in the finals.